it's not just this idea of like, oh, okay, I'm just going to choose love. And my reticular activating system is just going to only see the good and only see the love. Like, that's not how it works. As you said before, you've got to do the work to unlayer what you're already holding about people that you're going home for the holidays with. You've got to unlayer, or maybe it's not even going home for the holidays. Maybe it's like holiday time for you with your family, just there. But it triggers something because of past references.
Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean. And today, back with me, Kent. Welcome.
Thanks.
We are going to be talking about going home for the holidays. It's almost the holiday season.
It is.
So this will probably air
right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so great.
Good topic.
So
home for the holidays. And this idea even around the fact that we grow up and learn to have roles in our family. I don't mean the kind you bake. I mean, we do have that too. But it's we step into a role, especially, you grow up, you go off, you live your life. You're like, I'm going to be different than I was. And then you go back home often, whether that's in college, whether that's being married, having a family, or being 40 plus years old. And oftentimes we step back into that same position that we were when we were 10, 15, 5.
It's like a neurobiological perfect storm because holidays are, for a lot of people, we'll just say holidays are triggering.
Can be.
In good or bad ways.
Okay.
It really depends, because really trigger, people associate that to be negative, but it's really playing off a mechanism that's supposed to be positive. And the reason being is anything that is habitual or is a ritual, or we have developed some sort of thing around, I don't have the greatest word for that right there, but
some ritual or ceremony, unconscious
right.
ceremony about going back.
That creates either very positive or very negative feelings. Those are easy to trigger. And I call it the perfect storm because we, around the holidays especially, we have particular sounds. So there's music. Even if you're someone who doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving, if you're not one of our American listeners or watchers, or Christmas because that's not within your belief system. Generally, during this time, there are holidays of some sort. There are rituals or something that people engage in from a community or family structure.
Even if it's just like kids are off school, right? It's like there's a holiday time coming into
Sure.
the new year, holiday time.
And very often, our family, or we grew up in a culture or community, there's music during this time. There's particular music or particular movies. There are colors often associated during this time. Smells, very particular smells. All of these things are what our brain does to just be like, boom, 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 trigger all kinds of sensory memory.
Sure, things that we've already experienced. And of course, your brain is beautiful in that it wants to conserve as much energy as possible. So any of these triggers or things that pull up, it's just like, oh, I know exactly what to do. It's like getting in a car. You don't think about it anymore. You just drive. So it's the same thing. You go home, certain smells, certain colors, certain whatevers, certain people, certain sounds, certain interactions. And it's like, I know what to do.
Yes. And this topic really was born within our student community. So we have online courses and we have students and we have a thriving, wonderful student community. And we do mentoring calls. We get on live online and do mentoring calls. And this started a couple years ago, I believe, maybe even a little bit longer, where as the holidays were approaching, we could almost see the wheels turning, and people's like, what is this going to be like? So I will say, little disclaimer, if this is your first episode you've ever listened to of the Mind Change podcast, there's some of this isn't going to be applicable because we're going to be talking about things that you learn how to do by having either read the book or have had sessions or have been in the student community. So this isn't a how to go home for the holidays, like
10-step guide to the best holiday season ever.
From a mental health perspective, it's not really like that because obviously with Mind Change, we have really particular tools that we use. And generally, it's helpful to have a little bit of knowledge around those.
Sure.
But the beauty of that is, and what we recognized in the student community was that it's important to talk about the intentionality that we bring into the holiday season.
Right, because like we're talking about, all of these, sounds and smells and colors and everything are very automatic.
Yeah.
And our brain and our body react accordingly. And so to go in with intention actually allows awareness, allows the conscious mind to settle rather than the subconscious to just do its thing.
Yes. And it's so easy to get hijacked. This is one of those times it's very easy to get hijacked by tradition, by habit, by what we know, by being pulled back in to really childhood or childlike behavior. And so you've got generally two camps, like love the holidays, can't stand the holidays. And a lot of that has to do with what we've associated, experiences we've associated.
Before we jump into all of those things, can we maybe share a brief overview of each of our upbringings and like how, and then going home and what that was like and everything like that? I think that might be helpful.
Well, it's a really great example of, I technically left home at 11, if we're talking about leaving home from your parents and, different things like that. But sort of the graduating of high school and leaving home and, going out on your own, I went pretty far. So I went pretty far from my family and then lived apart for a while in those ways. And so developed a lot of different ways of being, coping mechanisms, relationships, and everything, pretty far away from my family of origin.
For what reason? What would be the reasoning?
Well, I think to some degree, that's healthy and natural. I think for me particularly, I was probably running from some dysfunction and thinking like, I've got to get away from these kinds of things and these people. And that being said, I adore holidays and had fantastic, wonderful holiday memories with my family, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, big families, getting together, a lot of tradition, a lot of stuff. And for me personally, it was always really good. Now, not that crazy things didn't happen during those times. You get a group of people like that together, add a little alcohol, add a little, all the different things, and woohoo, it's like a firecracker waiting to explode at any minute. But I had a lot of fond memories around, holidays with my family. But met you, we were dating, and I felt like I was sort of this different person. And you met this particular person, and, we had our own kind of relationship. And then while we were still dating, you came back with me back home for the holidays.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling it, and also you commenting about it, like, I was a different person around my family.
Yes, I totally remember that now. I completely forgot. But yeah, it was like I knew you. By this time, we had dated. We were engaged.
Yes.
By a couple of months. And so this is the part of you that I knew. Mm-hmm. And then we get back to your family, and I guess the best word is scared. Like, who is this woman? Like, what is going on?
Right.
Different side of you came out.
I mean, I think I talk different, walk different, act different. We don't realize this in families, but if you have any sort of an accent of any type, it really gets stronger around your family. And the thing is that you are falling back into known roles, patterns, programs, scripts, we like to call them. It's like you come back and you just pick right up where you left off of the script in your family. You may be a completely different person outside of that and have learned all kinds of different ways of interacting and engaging in the world, but you come right back in. And for many people, I'm still a little girl, or I'm still I'm the daughter or the cousin or the aunt or the, whatever role that you find yourself in with these people. And it's because, especially if you've left home and maybe the people at home have stayed at home, a lot of those people, that's really where you see the difference in this, is it feels like nobody has changed. You go back and you're like, oh my gosh, everyone is still the same.
Well, and it's also a little bit like a riot mentality. Like you go
Riot?
into it and you don't even know like what's happening. You just kind of step back into the role because the majority of the people treat you, speak, are acting a certain way. So you just jump right into that versus being able to stand your ground and all of that.
Right. And from a neurobiological standpoint, again, that is it's easier. There's less energy output to go right back into your known ways of being and acting and speaking and all of that, because you know how to do that already. Even if it's not ways that you want to be, even if it's a totally different way that you would respond outside in your normal life, now you're back in your family and you're right back into the same kind of way of being. So even if someone comes back with, I love the holidays, I love my family, but then you come back into these ways of being, acting, responding, and thinking, that's what I'm talking about with being hijacked. You can easily be hijacked.
Okay.
And then come out of these things like, what was that? And I remember it's easy to reflect when you've got someone else who's only known you one certain way and sees you in this other way. And it really, helped me understand how easy it is to do that without even realizing it. So we may have been people who've, have our children of our own now and evolved, and we are in this particular way of business, and coming home can feel very humbling. And for some people, those relationships, parental relationships, sibling relationships, extended family relationships are strained and have been difficult or have been traditionally difficult.
So then you're already stepping into a situation that's familiar, but you're stepping into that and already probably dysregulated. And then the worlds collide.
And so often this starts well before you ever
because
get there.
Your body and your subconscious knows what you're going to do before you're actually doing it.
It knows the script very well. It knows that mom's going to say this and dad's going to do that and grandpa's going to do this and Uncle Frank's going to be weird and, and siblings going to get more presents.
Sorry
or buy
if
this.
There's like any Uncle Franks out there. We're not using you as an actual example.
It's just there's roles.
Yeah.
And you are preparing for them long before you ever step foot across the threshold of the family, wherever you're going to end up.
Okay.
So in the knowledge of that, we started speaking about this with our students and in the community of like, what could we do? How could we make this different? And one of the first steps, obviously, hopefully, and this is where we may need people to go back and do some other learning before this, but this is where self-work comes into play. Have we made progress? Do we feel like we are different people? Do we feel like we have dealt with some of the most painful, traumatic memories from our childhood? If we haven't, it's a huge ask, sometimes too big of an ask. And sometimes
you're just asking people to, in one sense, change consciously their subconscious programming, which you just can't do.
Yeah, basically we're asking you to white knuckle it through
Right.
your holidays, and we don't believe in white knuckling. So I think first and foremost, my assumption is if you're listening to this or watching this, you have some framework around mind change, even if it's just having read the book or heard the stories. And we equip people with tools on how to go back and change some of those really big primary imprinted memories that are looking to play themselves out when we're around family.
Right. Maybe those are things that you would naturally, when I say naturally, it's stored inside of you, naturally go and believe something about mom and the way she's going to interact with you, or believe something about, or even hearing the tone or hearing the questioning or hearing just like, oh, you're right back there, versus when you do this deep work, it doesn't matter what the triggers might be. It doesn't trigger the same response anymore.
Right.
That's the shifting of these subconscious programs that then changes the neurobiology of what chemicals are created in your body when you're interacting with these people, when you're smelling the smells, feeling the feels, seeing the see, whatever's there.
Yes. It's not really reasonable to ask people to walk into a holiday interaction or season and expecting something different if they aren't going to be the thing that's different. So I'd say that's the first thing is you need to be different.
Be the change that you're
wanting. Expecting and wanting.
Yeah.
And really, and this goes back into all the cliche things of like, we're the only people we can really change are ourselves. The only real power we have are within ourselves. It is cliche for a reason though, because it's true. So I would say the first expectation is make sure you've had some victories, some real victories through mind change, not just white knuckling it or trying to reframe the whole thing and hope it's going to be better.
Yeah, you can
have
about
minimal
the
victory there, but guarantees more stuff's going to, come out, and we're just sort of layering good on top of very good reasons that things are showing up in the first place. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is just, like we talked about, intentionality. Like, how are we going to move forward? So it's really setting a different intention for the holiday season. And we typically do that through the manifesto work. So one of our suggestions a couple years ago to the students was have a holiday manifesto, a really specific holiday manifesto. Like, this holiday season, I'm going to walk out of it like this. So if we do the manifesto, remember, we always do it in the tense of this has already happened and I'm already receiving it. This has already been the case.
And I am stepping into it this way, and this is how I am responding, and this is what is going on.
Yes. So holiday manifestos are really amazing and brilliant. And we want to set, like, what is your intention? Am I going to walk into this holiday season and I'm going to be, one of our suggestions previous years was, I'm going to be love. I'm going to be love.
Not just have love, not just feel love, not just all of those nice lovey-dovey feelings, but be. What is that?
So, yeah, and that has to be real. So it's, when we sometimes, when we shift traumas and we've had some progress with ourselves, love is so often a result of that. So self-love. We can't really give anybody or expect anything else from anybody else if are not going to have it for ourselves. So this is really not new agey like self-love as a concept. It's really the being of self-love and understanding that. When we've had some of those victories, we can then say, the love that I've found for myself, the ways that I understood that I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time, or we've experienced our parents or siblings or somebody else in that way, where we have felt, listened, watched, and within our minds, them make different choices, us make different choices. We can just gather up all that love and say, I'm going to move into this and I'm going to just be love. And so what if I were to step into the holidays just being love? And then I'm going to write my manifesto as the day after New Year's or the day after Thanksgiving or the day after Christmas, when I showed up just as love. This happened and this happened and this happened and this was, and we kind of write it out as if magic were real and we could wave the wand and all of this we would receive as walking into it as love. So if I just walked in with love, how does that change mom, dad, Uncle Frank, grandma, grandpa, siblings, the dog? How does that, I walk in as love. I've got my arms full of presents and they are all wrapped love. How is that going to be received? And what will that do and how will that change? Now, there's a lot of stuff about manifesting and, we want to take it out of the woo and bring it into the concrete science for this. So remember reticular activating system, that little bundle of nerves that really create filters for us and what we see and what we receive. If my reticular activating system is set for love, the worst of the worst people have it in there somewhere. They're not the worst people. They've just had the worst experiences, right? And this is the way that they're presenting.
Right.
They're not bad people. They may have made bad choices and they may have done things that are bad, but people in their core. If I'm walking in as I'm love, so much of what is not love, if my reticular activating system is set, I will not see. But I will pick up on every little attempt at love.
Okay, with that, I think it's important for our audience to understand that it's not just this idea of oh, okay, I'm just going to choose love. And my reticular activating system is just going to only see the good and only see the love. That's not how it works. As you said before, you've got to do the work to unlayer what you're already holding about people that you're going home for the holidays with. Mm-hmm. You've got to unlayer, or maybe it's not even going home for the holidays. Maybe it's holiday time for you with your family just there. Mm-hmm. But it triggers something because of past references. And so we have to unlayer that by first doing the work so that it's not just okay, even though I have 10 stories offhand about what mom said, and I have 5 different things that dad did to me that I'm just going to just be loved. No, we need to do the work so that we neurobiologically let go of the way that we see, feel, hear, mom, dad, family, uncle, aunt, children, whatever it is that we've stored in our body and our brain. And once we let go of that, that's where love can start to come to the surface, and the reticular activating system will do what it needs to do regardless in finding love.
And I get a lot of people will be yeah, but when I go home, these people do terrible things to me. They say terrible things. They are terrible to me. And they may be. So a lot of people will be I'm going in braced and ready for battle because these people do these bad things to me. But then what we don't understand is that braced and ready for battle is doing things to our body and our mind. You can go in that way. Here's the difference. You can go in braced and ready for battle, and that's going to do things to your body, and it's still not going to do anything to change them. It's really just harming you.
Well, and it closes you off.
Sure. So that maybe someone who was ready, who has done some change or some work, who's ready to love, you're not going to see it because you're looking through, chainmail or, lots of armor. So much of this work is about, we're not saying it's right and it's okay that you maybe are treated this way or said this thing or da-da-da, but it's more for you. You get to walk in and change the narrative, change the story. You get to at least walk in and say, you all may stay in the exact same role and the exact same script. I'm going off script. And my story is love. And my story is good. And so I can already hear the pushback out there. You don't know my family. You don't know Here's the thing though. This has worked for so many people. This is why we keep talking about it, because the feedback we got from that very first mentoring call that we did was this changed everything. So many stories. So we know that this can be done and that it works and it can change so many things. So we have a story from a particular student, And this was less about family and more about the way she felt about the holidays. Because for her, holidays meant stress and doing, cooking, cleaning, buying, preparing, decorating. And even though she loved the holidays, for her now, she, as an adult with her kids, the pressure to create the same wonderful holiday created so much stress in her. And she realized she was bringing it's like, these are the gifts you didn't intend to wrap. Stress, pain, like nervousness, anger, like lashing out because of, and all these feelings, and then being absolutely destroyed and wiped out by the holiday season.
Trying to make it so great for everyone else, right?
Yeah.
That was the intention.
And when she realized, like, I just want to go in as love, she was able to communicate with her children. So this was just within her immediate family having a holiday for themselves. She was like, what do you guys want? Like, what would be the loving thing to do here? What do you guys want this to be like? And the response she got was one of, we just want to be relaxed. We want to enjoy each other, even from young kids. It was a lot of this being communicated that all that she was working so hard to do and stress out over wasn't what was bringing the joy. It was actually bringing something quite the opposite. So while she was looking back fondly upon her childhood and the holiday, she was realizing that it was because it was being prepared through love and through wanting the family to experience joy. So she was trying to create the outcome of joy through stress and pain and, like busy and all of this stuff, which of course we're never going to get. So she was missing the boat anyway. So when she decided to, and this particular student has been a student for a number of years, and I love to hear from her because I feel like every holiday gets better and better and better and better. And it's now translated to her family, to where she is now enjoying holidays with her extended family, where there was a lot of pain before and really great stories. So, I mean, that's just one of many, many, many great stories of people being able to do this. So it's doing the work, creating some victories beforehand, then being intentional about what you want your holiday to be like, and then putting in the way of manifesting that. So the way to set your reticular activating system once you've cleared any opposition is feel into it. So you want to smell what it's going to smell like to be love at that holiday. Feel what it's going to feel like. Hear what it's going to sound like. See what it's going to look like for you to walk in just as pure love. And then that creates so many opportunities for something different. That does not mean your family is just going to automatically step in and get on the same script as you are.
Okay, so let's pause that then and go back a little bit, because you were talking about this student and what she ended up putting ultimately herself in the role of, right, was provider, doer, baker, decorator, make everyone happy.
Cruise director, for the whole thing.
She was everything. And then she got exhausted and it was no fun and no one wanted to be around her after that because,
Or during it.
Yeah. And so all that to say that she put herself in that role.
Correct.
But oftentimes, regardless of that's with her and her family, like her immediate family, regardless of maybe current family, oftentimes we all have roles from our family of origin. So what happens when you're like, okay, I'm going to be different and here I am and I'm not going to be this, I'm going to be this, I'm just going to be love and all I see is love and it's going to be so great. But all these other people, they know your role because you've been in that role for 15, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years. Like that's what you do at holidays. That's who you are as a human. That's what your purpose is in this family. Again, we're not thinking that way consciously, but that's just what it is. So what do you do when you have a role, but you're trying to get out of that role and create a different one?
Yeah. So the first thing is you need experience, because you need experience into whatever different role you want to be in. And we remember the brain cannot distinguish between happening now and us doing it in our mind. So we need that experience. So that's where the manifesto is so important, is feeling into it, seeing into it, doing it in your mind first. Then we have to have that understanding that it's uncomfortable to come out of roles. It's uncomfortable when someone goes off script.
Right.
I always use the example of back when I used to do acting, and we would be on stage and, you have an entire show memorized. And inevitably, at some point, if you're doing a long run, there's going to come a time where someone goes off script. And it is agonizing when someone goes off script.
You're supposed to say this so that I can say this.
Because if you don't say this, I can't say this. It's not going to make any sense. And it's paralyzing. And I think it's important to understand that it can be that way for family members too. It can be paralyzing or confusing, or when you're not doing the thing that you normally do, when you're the one that maybe isn't worrying about every little detail or cleaning everything or stressing, or I'll use an example of another student whose role in the family was kind of the rough and tumble jokester, kind of sarcastically joked and made fun of people a little bit. And for himself, he realized that is not me feeling like I'm showing up in my best self. And he realized he had given some of his family members kind of a hard time, and he wanted to show up differently. And so he goes into a family event, and he realizes so quickly how strong the pull is for him to make fun of a cousin or, start to get in that way. And he just realized, no, I'm going to step back from that and I'm going to engage in a really different way. And he could almost see people bracing in getting ready, oh, what's he going to say? What's going to come out of his mouth? What nasty thing might he, joking, but sarcastic remark might he make? And instead, he really made an effort to be curious about family members. And I think at first there's a little bit of skepticism. Are you trying to use this information to just really dig at me? So it took some time for him. And some family members stepped off script a little quicker, and others couldn't trust it. And because he knows the work, he gave them all the space to do that. The only thing that mattered for him is that he was showing up different. He had enough grace and enough, I think, space holding for other people because of his journey. He realized, I need to give them time and prove, in one sense, that this is me now.
Well, there's a recalibration phase, right?
For sure.
And so it's the way that the analogy I like to give is, you've been doing a dance with your family in a certain way. It's the same music, it's the same dance. And so you go in there, and if you change, and if you're the one saying, okay, I'm going to be the one with the boombox playing the song, a different song, right? And you put it on, and everyone's waiting for that same song, that same one, and you put it on, and everyone's been, let's say, doing the tango your whole life. And then you put on a song that's I don't know, hip hop or something. It's going to be really weird to have a tango. People are starting to do that, and you're just dancing differently. So eventually, when you show up different, they will either have to stop dancing the way that they used to, the old script, or join you in that music that you're playing.
And toes will be stepped on.
Oh, 100%, because it's foreign. And you're like, and it's that recalibration phase. Actually, can I share just a little bit about so we talked about your upbringing and kind of your story and going back and what that was like. For me, Christmases and birthdays and holidays were pretty festive for me. And it was all good. Interestingly enough, when I got older and I met you, if you'll notice, it was this weird line of Heather wanted to celebrate, and I was trying to keep everything down here. This was, if you know anything about our history, this was me trying to balance things, right? So if she's way up here, I'm trying to bring it down so that, we'll kind of come like this. Again, work through all that stuff, but I had this sort of holidays, keep it here, because it wasn't safe for me to go super high or super low, because of kind of my upbringing and some things that at least I perceived was happening for safety. So as I did all the work and as I shifted and as I changed, now I'm like, let's go to the store after the day after Christmas or the day after Halloween or the day after whatever and get a whole bunch of things on sale for next year, decorations. But as I was doing the work, especially, I would say this was maybe, almost a decade ago, not quite, maybe 9 years ago. I remember a very distinct time where I had done some work around my family, my parents. We were in town with my parents, but my sister's family was there. It's just me and my sister. So it's like our whole family, our spouses, our kids all together. It was really great. Like we had a great time. But there was a moment, I think it was on my birthday. I had some birthday trauma stuff that
because your birthday is very close to Christmas.
Yeah, but that's not even why. It was just things that a whole other story. But I had dumped on my own birthdays and a lot of different things that happened in my belief systems. So, but I was emerging from the way that I was being held. So we're going back to this roles thing. I had a role in my family. I'm the youngest. That's Kent. I was the jokester. I was the funny one, the one who, like, when things would get serious, try to make it like light. I was the one who, if life got really serious, I'm like, who cares? Come on, guys. And so there was just certain roles that I had, even as the younger brother or as the younger child or whatever. And I had done a lot of work around myself and changing who I am. So I remember this one time that there was something in me that, totally unconscious, I was sick. Looking back, I was sick of the role that I think my whole family put me in. And it was more just like being the pusher, or like, oh, okay, if you want to, that's fine. Like, I wouldn't stand up for what I really want, for what I really believe, and just push it. Even though I was very direct at times, like there was something with my family dynamic. And so not knowing how to recalibrate fully at that point, some interaction happened with the family in the living room and everyone was there. And I, for the first time in my entire life, lost it and like said something kind of stern and raised my voice. And I kind of just...
Kent's version of losing it.
Yeah.
Raising his voice.
Yes, that was my version. But, and I stormed off, which is totally unlike me. And like went to the basement, went by myself, like I just want to be myself. It's just very unlike me. And everyone in my family was like, what is going on? Now, not necessarily saying that's a healthy thing or the greatest way to deal with it, but this was part of my personal recalibration. And I came up late, I worked on myself, did some things, came up later, apologized, like, okay, that's not the healthiest way. But then I just spoke what I needed, what I wanted, and went through it. And it was like, oh, and it was at that moment, 8, 9, 10, whatever years ago, that something started shifting and that I wasn't going to allow myself to be in a role that I used to be in. The one who couldn't be taken seriously, the one who didn't have this, I don't know, something shifted in me for that. And it's been different ever since. And it's gotten better and better. It's almost like there's been more respect because I had more respect for me. Mm-hmm. And so I put myself in a different role. So for those listening out there, understand that putting yourself in a different role can take some unlayering.
Yes.
Like it wasn't like one and done even those many years ago, like continual work on how I'm holding my family, how I'm holding my mom, my dad, my sister, my in-laws, whatever.
And you hadn't done a manifesto and set an intention and worked into all of that. So that was more just the realization that sometimes these roles can feel very oppressive and we react to them.
Right.
And that it takes people some time to shift out of those roles. And sometimes we don't always bring the best version of ourselves in thinking we want to be different in our family. The first
time or,
Right. And it's very easy to blame everybody else for the way that we are. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm this way because everybody else made me this way. And I think that's the shift that when we've done a lot of work, we start to realize how involved we have been from a really loving place.
Right.
And when we do that, it changes the way we can see other people. And we really have to actually do that though first. Otherwise, we'll go in still being victimized. Well, I'm this way. I lost my cool because I can't believe you said that. And Mom, you always do this to me. And Dad's always that way. And, whatever. It's really choosing, having some agency, maybe for the first time in our lives, with the understanding that could be highly uncomfortable for other people.
Yeah.
And our goal isn't to make other people uncomfortable. It shouldn't be anyway. And in their discomfort, if we can recognize, oh, that's discomfort from me being off script and not taking it personal.
Right.
Like, oh, see, there they go. I'm trying to be better and they're just taking me down and they're against me. Like that just reinforces the narrative. So it can be a really helpful thing to go into these situations pulling from experience that we've legitimately worked on things through ourselves and we've seen change already. And it's a wonderful thing to bring into the holidays. Even the idea that holidays have to be stressful. That was one of my personal ones, realizing that, and I had different roles in different families. My parents were divorced. So we had I would see different families and, very distinct different families.
Yeah, actually, you were we visited both your families that time that, when we were engaged. And the way you were with one side of the family was stark different to the way you were with the other side of the family, which was then still different the way you were with me. So...
Right. So on one particular side of the family, I was let me just do as much as I can and show up being the most helpful, the most easy, and make everything easy, just be an easy person. Where on my other side of the family, I could show up a little bit more like myself is what I felt like. A little more free, wild, rambunctious. And in this side of the family, it was a little bit more like, let me help clean. Let me be just not an inconvenience to anybody at any time. And I remember this has been a few years back now, going into that situation and realizing I really want to enjoy my family. Be curious about family members that maybe I really only see once or twice a year. And that would involve me not just jumping up to do the dishes right away or, doing all of those things that I always felt like I needed to do to be okay. Because guess what? That family produces a number of those people. And there were quite a few other people who were jumping up and happily doing the dishes. So I took that opportunity to sit back and actually just relax, let go of the busy and the doing, and just be. And I felt like I really connected with certain family members way differently than I ever had before. And for me, I felt closer to those family members that particular holiday than when I may have doesn't mean dishes don't need to get done or that I'm just going to be a bump on a log and not be a helper. But the moments that I felt like it was appropriate, I chose to just be rather than do.
Well, and that enabled a slowing down. And I remember when that started shifting inside of you and you were just more present for all of it, which is the greatest present, right? The greatest gift. And just being present, and you were more present with our kids, more present with your family, more present even with my family. Just there's something shifted inside of you that it no longer was about holidays. It no longer was about family. It was no longer about roles. So much had changed inside of you that you could actually show up as you wherever you went.
And some people are less comfortable with that than others. But I think overall, and listen, I've done tons of work, so I've been doing this a very long time. And I think a lot of my family members now are kind of used to the fact that I'm probably going to show up in this different way, right? Yeah. So I'm a little bit of a loose cannon at these things. Who knows what Heather's going to show up being and doing and, saying at these things. But I really feel like my intention isn't to rock the boat. My intention is just to be present and to connect and to be love or to be quiet in my spirit. So that translates. I feel like that translates. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can do to come into that. We talked at one of our last mentoring calls about rest. like, what if these holidays could be restful? How few people actually feel more rested after the holidays. And that doesn't mean that we don't still do things. So I talked about when we set an intention, we can find that in whatever we do. So if my intention is to go into the holidays being restful, I can still decorate, I can still shop, I can still bake or cook or clean, but through a spirit of rest. So I can, in those moments of washing dishes or scrubbing a dish, if I'm really present in my body at the time, because I've had a lot of victories in being able to do so, every wipe of the dish or scrub of the dish is a moment of rest. Even in the shopping, if I drop in and I can just be like, I'm really just walking right now, right? That can be rest. There can be so many moments of rest, even if we're doing the same things we've always done. And so I think that's feedback that we got that was really helpful for some of our students. And yeah, we just want to bring as many wonderful tips as we can.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that being able to rest obviously is letting go of the programs, the doer programs, the have to, the never enough programs, all of these subconscious programs that is what we unravel when we're doing the mind change work. It's got to be done. Again, this episode was not about here's how to have good holidays. Step 1, do this. Step 2, I mean, really it's step 1, go inward. So step 2, find the program. Step 3, whatever. But it is getting in and doing the work, not so that you have to white knuckle, like you said, that intentional, I have to do this and I know I'm going to act this way, but I'm going to do this anyways, versus flowing into it because you're holding yourself in a whole new way from this deep work that we really can do.
Yeah, I think the invitation, no matter where this particular podcast lands with you on your journey, the invitation is notice. So maybe you're beginning this journey and you maybe don't have all the tips and experiences to really choose to come in differently.
Right.
And you're still feeling a little bit of a victim to the circumstances in your family. I would invite you to maybe consider what role you're playing that you may not have chosen as a child, but you are still choosing as an adult. Because we don't really choose which roles we take as children. We do, but we don't think we have much choice in it. We feel like if they're already taken, we can't do that one. And so we do another one. But as an adult, we are still choosing those. We're still choosing youngest child, oldest child, the way that we parent, the way we are with our parents. We do choose, even though it doesn't feel like we're choosing. We are still doing that. So the invitation might be to just notice this holiday. Try to notice with curiosity.
Yeah, that's huge.
Not notice with irritation or guilt or shame or blame. That's
judgment.
Please don't do that. What about curiosity? What about curiosity of what role do I play? And then what does that mean that this role this person plays and this person plays? And seeing it more as scripts and patterns and programs. And if we can do that with curiosity rather than judgment, it's an invitation into thinking differently, seeing differently. And then maybe coming out of the holidays with, whoa, I know what I need to work on. It's pretty clear for me, this pattern emerged and this program emerged, and wow, I really saw how hijacked I got in this situation. These are things that we can work on. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. It's wonderful to know what we can work on. And then maybe, this person really bothered me. Great. In mind change, it's very helpful to know the bother. And so we can sometimes even shelf these things or table these things if you're someone who's kind of new to even the concept of mind change, or new in your work, or new in thinking of your family in a bit of a different way. And those are things that you can bring home as growth opportunities, as points of, wow, I didn't realize this bothered me so much, or that I did this role, or that I automatically do this, or that I'm blaming this situation or person. That's really valuable feedback for those of us who really want to grow.
Yeah. And for those of us who really do look for patterns and kind of notice, oh, this is going to happen again or that. I mean, it's really inspiring, whether it's on the mentoring calls, whether it's on at the retreats, whether it's whatever, like post those things, we hear from people and the massive shifts and changes that are happening in their dynamics because of what they're changing inside, because of how they're holding things up here, how they're holding things in here. All of a sudden, people are now stepping in to a whole different space. And that's what the invitation is as well, is allowing for, first of all, you to step into a different space, a different role, a different you, the better you, the truer you. And as you do, it's an invitation to other people to dance a different dance, to have a different script, to be together in a different, new way, a better way in love.
And I would say, listen, if your change that you've been doing and working on in your wellness journey doesn't work at home, like doesn't work in certain areas, how deep is it really? Like if I can only maintain this as long as I stay in this particular environment, stay with these friends, with these people. If we don't talk about this, if this doesn't happen, like it's so narrow, your ability to be okay. And that is not true healing. That isn't freedom. That's actually more constraints and more like shackles. So that's not working. And you may understand, you may have done 10 years of talk therapy and really be very well versed on how victimized you've been by your family. But if the only way you can feel okay is not talking about it, not thinking about it, not seeing it, not being involved in it, are we truly free? I would say no. At least that's not the level of freedom I'm willing to settle for.
Yeah. And I would say in general, all people, the two most valuable things are freedom and connection. And if we can connect with other people in and through freedom, that's when love shows up. That's when all the goodness, all the shimmers.
Yeah. Glimmers.
That's what it
Glimmers,
is.
shimmers. For those of you who don't know, the word, people have such a negative connotation and association to the word trigger.
Yeah.
And it's really important to know our brain was built that way so that we would see the good and connect good as well, not just negative. If we are just a victim to everything triggering us, we're just a victim. But there's other things. There's smells that bring you back to certain things, or sounds or songs. It's the same mechanism in our brain that works for a trigger. It's just these things are the good, the glimmers or shimmers, as they're now called.
Yeah, it's not the trigger itself, it's what's in it, right? So it's what's being transmitted out of the trigger, the glimmer, the whatever.
Right. It's the love is not in your turkey stuffing and mashed potatoes. The love is with the family. If you can't love turkey, mashed potatoes, and stuffing if there wasn't some good thing happening around you when those things were served.
Oh, those things don't love you back, really.
They don't love you back. They may taste nice for certain people. But even if they don't taste nice for you and you have a negative connotation or connection with it, probably something painful happened in your holidays.
Yeah, that's a neuralink right there.
That's a
Positive
link.
Or negative. Our brain and our body and our taste buds and our eardrums and everything else links things.
Yes. So we hope that this helps people to have more intentional, free, restful, loving holiday seasons, and an opportunity that if you do go into these situations and there is a little bit of stepping on toes, a little bit of dancing to different beats of different drums, a little bit of uncomfortable from that, then hopefully there's also a lot of good glimmers and a lot of good ways that you saw love where you may not have seen it before, or found rest where it maybe wasn't before. But if there are growth opportunities that emerge from this time, come back, recommit. The new year is an incredible time to double down on your effort. Mind change works. It works. We have hundreds of thousands of people who know it works and have spoken to really just seemingly miraculous things that happen when you really get in and you do the work. So wherever this finds you, there's a place to come in and to find relief and to find freedom.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So bring that home to the holidays.
Yes.
For the holidays.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for this discussion.
Always. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you who are joining us, whether you're watching or listening. We really appreciate all that you do, all of the feedback that we receive, all of those fantastic 5-star reviews, and the way that you've been sharing the episodes. It means so much to us, and it helps us to know that we're meeting you where you're at. So please continue to communicate with us in those ways. And thanks again for joining us on the Mind Change Podcast, where we are changing the world, one mind at a time.